This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. And
it's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic. And he's on the Dan Barrero right now.
Questions for Jonny Athletic, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, 64686. Gerald Posner joining in about 90 minutes. And Jonny, now with the very latest Timberwolves steam. My sources say you're working on a pretty big story that indicates there still might be another significant shoe to drop. Can you confirm?
I wish I could.
Sorry.
You got me?
I got you. I'm just disappointed already. I was hoping you had something splashy.
We should have it. I mean, in honor of you coming back from your sabbatical and everything, I mean, it feels like that we need a big shoe to drop right now to just get this thing kickstarted.
Yeah, but it looks like, alas, that is unlikely. Now, I want to focus right now on the point guard position. So is it your belief that at that spot, it kind of is what it is right now, that the rumors about the Wolves maybe sniffing around some bridge point guards, just in case Dillingham's not quite ready to make a big jump, is over, that it's unlikely that there is going to be any kind of even medium-sized move there? Is that where you think this is?
I still think there is time, Dan, for them to bring in someone else. I mean, a Malcolm Brogdon, a Cam Payne, even if now that Bradley Beal is available, that would be just kind of instant. I don't expect that to happen, but I think they explore things like that to get combo guards, in here. And I still think that is a possibility. But really everything they've done all summer long so far has been messaging to the fans, to the team, that they believe in Rob Dillingham. They picked at 17, and there were a couple of very well thought of guards available when they were on the clock, and they went with the big man, with Berenger instead of that. They have not been aggressive in going out and trying to get a bridge point guard or make a trade for one, or really even kind of try and recruit heavily a free agent with the minimal amount of money that they have to spend. And so all of that has been telling me and telling everyone that they want Rob Dillingham to have a real shot here. There will be ups and downs and things like that, but I think that Tim Connolly particularly really thinks that he can play. And so I think that most of what they're doing right now is geared toward empowering this young kid and seeing if he's ready to go.
Is it fair then to say that if the Wolves are going to make another jump, which is to get it not only at least to the conference finals again, but maybe even be more competitive, and dare we say it, hit the finals, that it's based pretty much on how big a jump Dillingham can make? Is it as simple as that? Because I don't see where elsewhere it gets much better in a significant way, where things are, there's an added element here that says, whoa, they were in good shape. Now it looks like they're in great shape. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that you will see more Terrence Shannon Jr., you will see more Jalen Clark in the Nikhil minutes. And so it will be markedly better. I'm not sure, but it has the potential to be different, to have a different element, a different dynamic to it, than just the straight kind of running it back theme we've heard. But I do agree 100% that the ceiling of this team in some ways could be established by Rob Dillingham and his ability to make some sort of leap, because you have to expect at some point that Mike Conley is going to take another step back, even if it's just during the regular season, taking more days off, playing fewer minutes, or having injuries that crop up at his age. Like, that's just going to happen. And that is a big hole right now on this roster, is shot creation. And so where else would that shot creation come from other than Terrence Shannon Jr. in transition, which I think can be a big factor, but mostly Rob Dillingham playing the point guard alongside Anthony Edwards, creating his own shot, creating for others, breaking the paint, as Chris Finch likes to say, and seeing if he is capable of running an offense and creating offense for himself somewhat consistently. If he can do that, if he can be dynamic that way, then all of a sudden the Wolves look a lot different. If he is just not ready yet, or if he's just not going to be someone that eventually comes into that kind of a role, then I think that the Wolves will be a little more hard-pressed to duplicate last season, because you'll lean more on Anthony Edwards, you'll lean more on Julius Randle, maybe even have to force Dante DiVincenzo into that role a little bit more, and it just makes it a little more complicated. But Dillingham, if he's ready and he's ready to pop, that does have the potential to change things to a level that's much more dramatic than anything else they have on the roster right now.
Johnny, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Do you expect Mike Conley to start the 2025-26 season as the Wolves starter at point guard?
Honestly, I don't know right now, Dan. I think that it would make sense to me that he starts, especially early on, to allow Rob Dillingham the time to get his feet underneath him, to find his role, and then for that, but then also because it is clear that one of the big advantages that the Wolves see with Mike Conley to this day still is how comfortable he makes Rudy Gobert feel out there. And their ability to find a way to make Gobert somewhat of a factor offensively is going to be key going forward, because it was pretty rough for a lot of stretches, especially in the Western Conference Finals. So if you want to avoid Rudy Gobert from completely falling off offensively, I think there is a belief that Mike Conley has to be out there to help him with that. I think the only way that it isn't that way, that Mike Conley is not starting week one, is if it's just so clear in training camp and in the preseason that Dillingham is ready to start. But you and I both remember, Dan, the Luke Ridnour, Ricky Rubio days, right? Where they started out with Ridnour starting at point guard and Rubio coming off the bench. And then that eventually, a month or two into the season changed and Rubio started starting. I could see that kind of a setup and a baton passing, in the regular season. That would make sense to me. No
reason to believe that Conley is going to retire?
No, I don't think so. There's been nothing that I've heard about that. Conley has spoken at the end of the season about, wanting to come back next year. The Wolves are happy to have him back. I think, Dan, that there may have been opportunities to trade him, or at least, kind of package him in a deal to go get something else. Nothing that was earth-shattering, that would have, improved the roster markedly. But I do think that the Wolves are resistant to that because they want to do right by Mike Conley. They don't want to uproot his family again in the last year of his deal. They believe that he can still be additive here, both on the court and in the locker room. And I expect Mike to be playing. I think that if he was really considering retirement, you would have seen the Wolves take a much different approach in free agency. They would have been more aggressive, or maybe even in the draft, they would have been more aggressive in adding a guard. And so in addition to all of their messaging kind of empowering Rob Dillingham so far, it's also said that we expect Mike Conley back and to play some substantial minutes for the Wolves next season.
Johnny, the Wolves front office, coach, even fellow players had every reason to be thrilled with the Julius Randle they got once he came back from injury, until the very end of the playoff run, where there were some very concerning performances as well. Ultimately, the team decided to look past that, given all of its options, and said, if we can get him at what we view as a reasonable price, we're going to double down on this, at least for now. What is the internal thinking on trying to eliminate the bad feel that I had, that I think that many people had, about the way it finished with Randle after his very encouraging return from injury?
Yeah, it's a puzzle that they have to kind of work with and figure and find the way the pieces fit together a little bit more against certain matchups. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Dan, I mean, against the Lakers matchup, against the Warriors matchup, that they were both advantageous for Randle, he dominated. He didn't just play well, he dominated in those games. But then when it switched to more attacking, frenetic defense that could switch with Randle, that could really kind of be a little more physical, but also very handsy and just get him off of his spots, he had a much harder time being aggressive and assertive. And I think that they are leaning on right now, Dan, kind of the familiarity chemistry angle on this, and believing that another year next to Rudy Gobert, a very unique player, one that can be hard to figure out sort of on the fly the way that Randle had to last year, that there will be a better plan going forward and a better understanding of where Gobert can fit and where Randle can fit when they're on the floor at the same time. And I think we saw a little bit of flashes of that in the playoffs. I think Randle, finding Rudy Gobert for those lobs and kind of using their height and their strength to their advantage a little bit. But there's a long way to go, Dan, in terms of being able to do it against Oklahoma City, maybe even against, I'll be interested to see how he does against Houston in this new kind of Houston front, and finding ways to make sure that Randle is comfortable, that Gobert is comfortable, but then also that Anthony Edwards, that these guys are not in his way getting to the paint. I think that's going to be a big-time work in progress to remain, and that's still very much a question of whether those three pieces can all work together at a level elite enough to take the final step that they want to take next season.
To this point, name me the Western Conference team that you believe has improved the most and perhaps in a way that should give Timberwolves fans a bit of concern and pause.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston has improved a lot, but I actually really like what Denver's done. I think that when you look at one of the reasons the Wolves were so successful against Denver over the past couple of years is that Jaden McDaniels was able to erase Michael Porter Jr. from the face of the earth for most of those games in those series and in the regular season. Porter Jr. is just not nearly as reliable as Cam Johnson, the player they flipped him for, from Brooklyn. And in fact, I think it's just a great fit for Denver. And then you add in Bruce Brown, who helped them win a championship, will give them a little bit more depth. And if they figure all this stuff out with Jonas Valanciunas, having a reliable center who is not just a dinosaur like DeAndre Jordan was, to fill in and play, even 15, 18 minutes a night to help Nikola Jokic and avoid just the pitfalls that team usually suffered when Jokic went off the floor. I think they have improved themselves immensely in this offseason, and I think they need to be probably considered the number 2 threat to Oklahoma City right now. I still, think that the Wolves can match up well against Denver, but they have fortified their roster both on the bench and in the starting lineup in major fashion, and I think they're going to be really, really good next year. Is
it your view? I'll take one last look back at the Durant saga, because we haven't been on, I don't think, together since that finally came down. Mm-hmm. Is it your belief that the package the Wolves were willing to offer was, in fact, better than any other package, including what they ended up with, but that the Wolves in the end simply were not interested in following through with that group of players and draft picks once they were told Durant just simply does not want to come here? Is that what changed everything?
Yeah, I do believe, Dan, that Phoenix, if it had its choice, if Durant was completely out of the picture and they were just doing the deal, they would have made a deal with Minnesota because they liked the pieces that they thought they could get from the Timberwolves in a deal. What I cannot tell you exactly, Dan, is what the Wolves' final offer would have been had Kevin Durant said, come get me. Right. I'm all in. Let's go do this. I know it was reported by a Phoenix outlet that it was Rudy Gobert, DiVincenzo, Shannon or Dillingham, and the 17th pick. I do not believe that's accurate. I don't think they offered that much for Kevin Durant. And I do believe that they were the ones that pulled out of the discussions when Durant made it clear to them that he did not want to play here. But I believe that, yes, that Phoenix wanted whatever it was they thought they could get or what Minnesota was offering over what they did get from Houston. And that if Kevin Durant would have said, yes, I want to be a Timberwolf, he would be a Timberwolf right now.
Interesting. Jonny Athletic with us, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Give us an update on what you know regarding the now not future owners, but the present owners of the Timberwolves and what you have learned regarding their arena strategy. Is there, in your mind, a very creative, largely, privately funded kind of approach that you think they've already settled on, or do you think that's still very much in flux and an open question?
Yeah, Dan, I do think that one thing that has been clear in their initial rollout, and we will talk more to it with them, they're going to have some kind of like an unveiling on Friday in Las Vegas at Summer League, but they are being much more deliberate, I would say, on how they are going to go about the arena project than even I anticipated. I had the first sit down with them last week or 2 weeks ago now, after everything became official. And I asked them and kind of pressed them on the arena, and they made it clear that they weren't ready to make firm commitments on anything just yet in terms of location, funding, planning, all of that. They've said very much so that this is a project that's going to take years to come together. And I kind of expected them to have maybe more of the outlines of a plan ready to roll out right away. But it seems like they're being more deliberate with that. Now, I believe that they understand fully what the climate is like politically and everything around the arena. And given the partners that they brought in, I think that they understand that whatever project that they do, they're going to have to put a lot of the bill. Is it all of it? I don't know. I know Alex Rodriguez was on your show and said it was going to be privately financed. Maybe that's the way it ends up, but we'll have to see about that. But they have not made any firm public commitments on any of that yet. And I think that might take a little bit longer to take shape than I initially anticipated.
Is the Conley deal close? Tim Conley.
That's Alex Rodriguez says it. He has said that they're in great shape and that they think that they're, right on the doorstep. I understand why something hasn't happened just yet, because it makes sense that maybe that's one of the first things that if I'm the new owners and I brought this guy in and he's done such a great job here, I'd want to make sure that we owned that story, that there was no Glenn Taylor involved in it, that this was our move. And so given that they have not even, had their first press conference yet, I could see that happening a little bit later, this summer. But I would imagine that that's something that they want to have kind of buttoned up here fairly soon, because it will be a big feather in their cap when they can announce something like that and kind of have that be one of their first real big accomplishments and initiatives, given everything that Tim Conley's done since he has been here. That'll be a big announcement. And Alex Rodriguez has said it, like they feel like they're close, they're right in range, but I think there's still a little bit of negotiating to be done here.
Are all the pieces in place regarding a Kevin Garnett reunion with the franchise?
I don't think so just yet, Dan. I mean, certainly Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry know how important Kevin Garnett is to this fan base, to this franchise. They have had conversations with him and his people about what things look like in terms of a jersey retirement, in terms of trying to figure out some sort of role going forward. But to my knowledge, I don't think there's been any agreements in place yet on what exactly that will be and how they will get all of that done. There are many factors that kind of come into play when you're trying to nail something like this down. And so I think those talks are ongoing. And I think that might take a little bit further. I don't know when something like that would be announced, but I do anticipate they will figure something out. But I don't think that, that is on the 5-yard line and ready to go just yet.
Are there any other huge trades around the league that you expect to take place before the start of next season?
You know, it's kind of been quiet on that front now that the Durant thing is done. Jonathan Kuminga in Golden State certainly doesn't, to me, rise to the level of, whoa, that's an earth-shattering trade. Giannis seems to be holding the fort right now in Milwaukee. All of the messaging out of the Bucks and I think quietly out of the Giannis camp is that he's, kind of going forward, and it seems like right now he wants to be there. I don't think LeBron is getting traded right now, though that one is, I think, maybe the most interesting, given that he opted into the final year of his deal and has kind of done the LeBron thing where he's putting out some cryptic statements and kind of making it sound like, well, maybe I'm not so happy here in a Luka-centered universe that the Lakers have become. But it's really, really hard to trade LeBron, given that he's making $52 million a year and he's 41 years old or 40 years old. So if there is an earth-shattering one to be had, I believe it might be someone like LeBron. But I think we might be in a status quo here going into the start of the season.
So you're going, I assume you're going to Vegas?
I am going to Vegas. We'll be there a little bit later this week. Yep.
You can't miss Vegas these days, I wouldn't think.
No, I mean, how could I miss the introduction of the Twin Towers of Berenger and Zakarsky? It's going to be electric out there.
How'd that go? I missed draft. Obviously, I was out of the country for the draft. What do we take out of the approach the Wolves took on draft night? Yeah, I mean,
they really, really like Berenger. They think that, he's very young, he's very raw, he just started playing when he was 14. But they think that over the next couple of years in their development system, with Rudy Gobert here to help serve as a mentor, all of that, they believe that they actually could see this kid become something kind of special and some sort of successor to Gobert, 2-3 years down the road. And so we'll see. He's very raw. He's got a lot to work on, but you can see some tools there that are tantalizing to work with. Zakarsky is a huge dude, 7'3". I think he's even more of a project. He'll be in Iowa all next year. But we'll see what happens with that in a second round pick and a big man. But I would just say that kind of the messaging internally is, for a 17th overall pick, they really think that this kid could turn into something, pretty special and into a difference maker in a starting lineup. So we'll see. We'll have to wait for a while on that, but they really like him.
Did I see a rumor that Rubio might return to playing professionally in Spain, or did I hallucinate that on this trip?
I just saw he just did a long sit down interview with Marca, which is like a big outlet in Spain, but my Spanish isn't great, Dan, and so I haven't really, I don't know what the gist of it is just yet, but it seemed to me like it was much more of a reflective Rubio looking back. Now he sent out, he had the ad in the newspaper here thanking everyone. He sent some people he's close with game worn jerseys and things like that. I was lucky enough to get one of those. And so all of that stuff says, I'm done. Thank you. And he kind of made a run in Spain last year, but I guess I'll never rule it out. But it seems like he is trending more toward, I'm going to hang it up and I'm going to move on and figure out what's next with my life, and still working through all of the mental health things that he's been going through and all of that. So I don't think that he's coming back, but I'm never going to rule that out with Ricky, given how much he loves to play, and I think he wants to end things kind of on his own terms. But all of that seems so far to be like this might be it for him.
Change his face. Be happy. Enjoy it.
There it is. Famous words.
Did he write that on the jersey that he sent to you?
He did not, but it was a very, very heartfelt note.
Nice.
I'll keep that between us, but it was really, really nice. And, thinking a lot about it. One of my favorites. And I know that he put a lot of thought into the packages that he sent all over. So, and the ad that he took out for the fans here in the Star Tribune. So that was super, super cool. I've talked to him a few times since then, and really, really nice. He's the best.
Thank you, Johnny. We'll chat next week.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate you. That is John Athletic, brought to you by good friends at RBC Wealth Management. News on the march. That's coming up.
FanandBigDeck.com. Want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The keyword for the 4 o'clock hour is green. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword green.
On the mark.
The Texas floods, a story that continues to take most, rightly so, the attention outside the toy department nationally. Latest numbers I saw, at least 89 dead, dozens more missing after torrential rain caused a massive flood during the 4th of July weekend, devastating largely a girls' camp along the Guadalupe River. Camp Mystic said on its website this morning that it was mourning the loss of 27 campers and counselors. Camp's longtime director, Dick Eastland, was also feared lost. This is, I'm quoting from a Wall Street Journal piece. WSJ.com. Authorities were using drones, divers, and helicopters to search for survivors. Frantic parents posting pictures of their missing children on social media. Forecasters expected more rainfall and flooding today. They occurred in parts of central Texas known as Hill Country. Hardest hit area was Kerr County, which includes the city of Kerrville and Ingram. Some places up to 18 inches of rain fell over a 3-hour period. Much of the rainfall drained into the Guadalupe, a nearly 250-mile-long river that runs from Kerr County to San Antonio Bay in the Gulf. So the water swelled more than 26 feet in 45 minutes. And because of the area's steep terrain, shallow soil, ground does not absorb much rainfall once a storm develops, causing waterways to rise quickly. Texas is the deadliest state in the country for flood-related deaths, and the area between Dallas and San Antonio, known as Flash Flood Alley, is considered the worst region for extreme flooding. One of the obvious questions that's already been asked is, were people in Texas warned about the floods? The first notice of potential flash floods went out at 1:18 p.m. Thursday from the National Weather Service's San Antonio office. More urgent warnings followed overnight while many people were sleeping. Residents, survivors, and families of victims are wondering if more could have been done. Kerr County has not installed outdoor sirens to alert people of floods and other natural disasters as some other flood-prone Texas cities and counties have.
They've talked about it a lot.
They've debated it a great deal. But one of the issues, money. And how many times do we say this? It ends up often being about money. And sadly, people end up often, when they have budget constraints and issues, not being motivated enough until a tragedy like this takes place, right? That's the sad part of it, because there's a million examples, I think, of where if it just was spent more money on this or that, everything would be fine. But money's not unlimited. So decisions have to be made. It would seem, my understanding is much of this area is not in a great cell phone zone.
Right.
So one would think logically that makes it all the more important that there's other ways to try to convey the emergency, to communicate. And one would think more than anything else that would be sirens. Now, some individuals, as I understand it, did try to evacuate on the basis of the warnings they received, and they ended up perishing. So, you know, we've talked about this all the time. It takes about 3 minutes, maybe 2.5, for people to immediately go to who's to blame.
Oh, less than that.
And probably less than that. And I've said on many of these stories, these are all legitimate questions. But let the story breathe. Let's find out. Let's do not reporting over 4 hours, but reporting over 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months. to give us a better handle on exactly pointing the finger. But we are in our very, polarized political times. So lots of assumptions are made very quickly. And there's already been some good reporting on this story, asking some of these same questions. So my issue isn't asking them; it's how quickly we draw grand conclusions. When I think to get to the gray areas of the truth, it's often going to take a little bit longer. Or we even have to, I think, consider who we're getting the information from. What are their allegiances? Because it's as we've said many times, we're in as polarized a time as we've ever been. It's a Jets and Sharks world. And as much as we pay lip service to the conversation right now should be about the lost lives and the individuals still missing. That's where all of our emotion and all of our interest should be. But we're liars about that. We've moved way past that very quickly. Now, I will say, reporters should be doing their job following the story and trying to answer those questions. I'm not saying they should wait. I'm just saying for the rest of us to decide what we think we want to know, we learn how many times over and over and over again that for too many people, that's what I want to believe. I want to think that's that. It was a cutback here, or it was whatever the case may be, and it may end up being that's part of the story. But I will say again, on money, where budgets are tight, you and I could logically say, well, if you got bad cell phone coverage, sirens got to be part of the equation, no matter how much it costs.
Right.
But we don't have to make the tough decisions, right? If you only have so much money, you only have so much money. This story suggests that minutes of public meetings show that an inability to get state and federal funds has been a delaying factor. And I think we have to consider the possibility that some tragedies are so enormous and so difficult to prepare for that's part of living. That's part of life. That's part, unfortunately, in this case, the tragedy of life as well.
One of the stories I read also for this particular area of Texas indicated that because flash floods, it's like you said, you probably said it, it's one of the highest per capita flash flooding counties that we have. It just happens in a blink because of just how the land is, because of where the water is. They get flooding kind of all the time, not obviously to this level, but they're all aware of it. They all understand it. They've all kind of gone through a flood or two in their life. That when you do even get the warnings, there was one woman that was quoted that got the warnings the day before and basically said, well, it's Kirk County. I'm sure they're doing what they need to do, but I know what I'm doing here. I've lived here my whole life.
It's an excellent point.
And woke up at 1 o'clock and said, holy bleep, this is, in the middle of the night, a little bit different than what I even thought. That's the other
part. The middle of the night is a big part of this story, too.
Because you don't know exactly what's happening. You can't see everything, obviously. So even if you do have the warnings, and obviously the siren piece of it is a big one that I'm sure they're going to look at. But when people kind of live in an area, we see this all the time with hurricanes, right?
Yes.
That they always have to give the other warning. Like, look, we know a lot of you that have been here for 50 years. We've lived through a lot of these storms. This is not one of them that we're going to live through. You got to get out because we can't promise that we're going to be able to get to you if you don't leave now. You get a lot of that. People just don't want to leave their house. So there were multiple people that kind of went along that line, too.
And let's face it, the element of children.
Horrible.
Always adds.
It's just horrifying.
To the tragedy of it because we all think these are all human lives lost. But when children are involved at camps.
Just going to camp.
We think, my God, it becomes a horror story beyond what we ordinarily would think of it, even though what we ordinarily think of it would be a tragedy in of itself. So we'll see. I love the Grum Gal writes, Trump tried to blame it on Biden, but in the same sentence backtracked. You can't make it up. Once in 100-year storm. Hard to tell fault anyone at this point, but I hope Texas gets its act together moving forward. So, we'll see where this story goes. And if there's blame to be laid, like I said, some stuff has already been reported pretty well. I think there's a lot more reporting that needs to be done, but we're not, we're in a world where, again, we're kind of not allowed to wait. And so I wanted to emphasize more than anything, just acknowledging the horrific nature of these floods. Some of the video, some of you have seen it, is astonishing. There have already been a number of stories regarding heroic rescues as well, indicating that, it might have been even worse. So, as I understand it, this Camp Mystic is located in Hunt, Texas. It's described as a Christian girls' camp known for attracting affluent families from Houston, Dallas, and out of state. Notable alumni reportedly include the daughters and granddaughters of President Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was from Texas. The camp sits along the Guadalupe River, about 85 miles northwest of San Antonio. I believe there are a number of other camps. This is the only one that I think is still reporting missing individuals. The camp holds, at a time, 750 campers as well. So we'll continue to pay attention. We may even add a guest or two regarding that particular story. Also in news on the march.
You want to get to it after the pause?
You're right. I forgot.
There we go.
Segment with
Welcome
Johnny.
back.
The bridge. We'll hit it right now. Come back with more news on the march. Don't forget top 5 yet to come. And Gerald Posner at 5:30.
Celebrate the return of football with the Minnesota Vikings at training camp. The fun kicks off on Saturday, July 26th. For Back Together Saturday, you can get tickets today at Vikings.com/camp.
On the mark.
Item number 2. Anybody excited about a new American third party? In fact, that's what Elon Musk says he is launching, the American Party. It's one of the subjects we actually, if we have extra time, might get into with our 5:30 guest, Gerald Posner, as a guy who covered heavily the Ross Perot third-party candidacy way back when. It's an interesting question. Trump has already savaged it, of course. They've had a very, very bad breakup. And I'm curious to know via the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line whether anybody thinks this will come to anything. Because speaking of Gerald, he tweeted out earlier today that in his book on how Perot, basically that nothing unites Democrats and Republicans like a third-party threat backed by someone who can match them dollar for dollar, as Ross Perot could. And he mentions, he wrote a book on how they crushed Ross Perot and the Reform Party. But it is Gerald's opinion that Elon Musk will not fold as easily. It's an interesting question. I think there's so many people who get bogged down by the extremes of the left and right that say, God, I would like an alternative. Try to keep those folks honest. But it never seems to gain any sort of meaningful traction in this country. It just hasn't most of the time. And at this point, I think, now unless there's people, the people who loved Musk when they loved buying his electric car because it was nice and green, then they turned on him when he became a Trumpophile. Would they consider reuniting with Elon if he continues to be the Trump agitator? There's so many steps to this. I don't know. But logically, off the top of my head, I don't sense that Elon Musk at this point is going to be trusted by most left-leaning centrists. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but that's the way I view it. So in effect, does that mean he ends up hurting the Republican Party potentially far more than he would the Democratic Party? And how serious is he about this, right? Remember how serious he was about Doge?
Yes.
And it's almost like, is he one of those guys who's got the attention span that lasts 15 minutes and he's going to go on to the next thing too and not be all that interested in it? Or is he bitter enough about his falling out with Trump that he says, I'll show him, I'm going to actually knock him off? Although, I mean, this is supposed to be Trump's last term, right? So I don't know what the purpose of it would be at this point. So there's that item that got my attention also while I was gone. And on a lighter news on the march note was Ricky Rubio, who we were just discussing with Jonny Athletic during the Jonny Athletic segment, in Pamplona, Spain this morning.
What do you mean?
Thousands of daredevils ran, skidded, and tumbled out of the way of a stampeding group of bulls.
They're still doing it.
At the opening run of the San Fermin Festival on Monday. It's day one of the running of the bulls. That tradition, as I understand it, in Spain, bullfighting is nowhere near as popular as it once was. But this tradition continues, I guess, because in this case, at the end of it, you're not going to kill the bull, right? There's a better chance that a human might be injured or dead than the bull.
Yes.
They're not at the end of this saying, okay, that was it for you, bull. Now we're going to take you out.
Good run. It's over.
Exactly. Up to 4,000 runners take part in each bull run, which takes place over 2,775 feet and can last, it's only 2 to 4 minutes. So given that it's only 2 to 4, if you were in Pamplona,
yeah,
would you give it a shot?
I'd have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'd need to know more about the streets. I'd need to know if I had potential exit ramps.
I think they're pretty narrow.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about. And I'm of the age where I remember the opening scene from City Slickers where, they get stuck and one of the bulls gets them. That's what I would worry about. Is am I going to find, I'd be kind of on the outskirts of it. I wouldn't be one of the first people in the scrum. I'd kind of half-ass it, I guess, is the best way I would say it. I would probably do it, but I'd be looking for a quick way out.
I tend to agree with you, I think.
Right?
There's a part of it that just sounds, you want to be able to say, I ran with the bull.
Yeah, I ran with the bulls. Get the T-shirt.
Well, because the guy who brought this to my attention today, what the hell's his name? Brian Baldinger. Baldy reminded people of the running today. And
did he do a film breakdown?
He did it once.
Well, that makes sense.
I don't know if he had a film breakdown on when he did it, but he did do it once. And, that's a cool thing to be able to tell people.
It is.
Dinner conversation. And by the way, I ran with the Bulls one year.
Yeah. Oh, you went to Spain?
Yeah.
Pamplona?
Pamplona. I was there.
Yeah. Did you run with the Bulls? Oh, I did.
Traditional garb is described as white trousers and shirt with a red sash and neckerchief. The expert Spanish runners try to sprint just in front of the bull's horns for a few death-defying seconds while egging the animal on with a rolled newspaper. See, I'm not sure I would do that.
Not even close. No. Like I tell my kids, leave the animals alone. If you come up on a flock of geese, just let them be. Don't go run in on them.
While gorings are not rare, many more people are bruised and injured in falls and pileups with each other. Medics rush in to treat the injured and take the seriously hurt to a hospital. A few revelers injured this morning, but it wasn't clear if their injuries were actually from gorings. Running with the Bulls. I wonder if Rubio has ever run with the Bulls.
Probably not.
Probably not. He's Ricky Rubio. He's not like anybody else.
Or would he be like the ceremonial Bull starter?
That'd be pretty.
Does like the let's play hockey.
That's a decent job.
Before they do it. I think I'd like to see it in person, for sure.
No question.
I don't know if running it at this stage of my life would be a good call.
Goes back centuries.
I know.
Long time.
It would be cool. And I'm sure every bar and restaurant has some kind of running with the Bulls deal, or
by now there should be. Yeah.
Definitely viewing party, whatever it is. So I'd consider it if I was in Pamplona in July.
Top 5 will include what?
A little Lynx activity and Byron Buxton adding something to his very good season. The only silver lining of the Twins campaign so far.